so let's get started. Doing expenses is a pain. Right? We all know that. We hate doing that. But it's a necessary evil. We need to take care of that. So it's necessary. So the only question is, how can we ease the pain? That's the thing that we have to solve. So that is the reason we launched Zoho Expense. Basically, we want to ease the pain of creating expense reports, submitting them, and all of that. So this product was a fairly new product. It was launched about, I think, 2 months back. And it's been very well received. We're seeing good number of customers. But I want to talk briefly about what it does and the concept behind creating the product. Just like a search engine, if you look at Google, right? When someone asked the co-founders earlier, what's the goal that you're trying to achieve with a search engine? He said, we want users to come to our search engine and get out of it as soon as possible. That is, find the right thing they are looking for and quickly exit the search engine. So you should be able to quickly come into Google, find the one you're looking for, and quickly get out of to the actual target destination. And expense actually is no different. We want you to come use the expense software, quickly get your expense done, and just move on. Because we all hate doing expense reports. So the question is, how easy can we make it for you to quickly get your expenses done and move on with your job? So that's the core goal of Zoho Expense. The user interface that was designed, all the basic mini things, automation that was done, they are all built on this basic premise: quick in, quick out. Quickly get in the software and quickly get out of the software. If you had to spend tens of minutes in an expense management software, that means we have failed. And that's what we're trying to do here with Zoho Expense. But then if you look at an expense management software, the requirements are different from an employee and an organization. As an employee, well, you'd like to quickly get things done, the expenses done, and quickly submit them without putting a lot of time and effort. But organization has a different requirements before they choose an expense management solution. Like, they want to know, they want to mandate descriptions. They want to set rules for your expenses, saying, hey, you cannot spend more than $500 for that bottle of wine, right? So they have their own set of requirements, and they want the flexibility so that they can set up these requirements, the organization policies for their organization. So these are two different things. So let's start with looking at the employee side of things. How do you make it easy for employees to quickly create expenses? So first, let's look at the expense types. There are offline expenses. Well, you go to a restaurant, sign the check, and there is an offline, the bill, the copy of the bill. That's an offline expense. Then there are online expenses. Well, you go to Amazon.com, buy something, then you get a receipt. That's an online purchase. And then there are some kind of an other type of expenses. It could be recurring. It could be some other various types where you may or may not have a receipt out of the box. So how can you make it easy for each of these expense types? Right? Let's start with the offline expenses. Because in all these three cases, the goal is minimal data entry. If you have to enter the data, then it takes a lot of time. So how can we minimize the data entry across all these three mediums is one of the goals of the product. So let's look at the offline expenses. You go to a restaurant, sign the check. What do? You can quickly fire up the Zoho Expense app, take a photo of the receipt, and you're done. The application automatically takes the receipt, uploads it to Zoho Expense system, and it's available right there. And not just that, once you take a photo of it and upload it, or it automatically uploads it for you. It automatically extracts all the information for you and categorizes accordingly if the information is obvious. Like the date of the expense, the possible category the expense belongs to, the amount, the currency, and all of this information is automatically extracted and reducing data entry, manual data entry. So that's how you kind of minimize the work for you, the user. So this is a couple of screenshots here. Once you have the expense that is submitted, it's automatically extracted, and the receipts are, of course, stored as a receipt online. And then all the details are extracted and are available either on the mobile device or on the web as well. So that's offline expense. Now what happens to the online expense? Well, you buy something online like an Amazon or any other e-commerce store. What you get is a confirmation email. So what you do is you forward that confirmation email to receipts@zohoexpense.com. This is something that we are working on. It will be available later this year. But the plan is you forward the confirmation or the purchase confirmation email to receipts@zohoexpense.com. It automatically extracts all the information and adds it as an expense in the Zoho Expense system. Again, the goal is to minimize the manual data entry to the system. And those are the two different types of expenses. And then there are third types of expenses that you may or may not have receipts, and the transaction suddenly shows up in your credit card bill. What happens? Well, we integrate with banking systems. So about 5,000 banks are supported by default. All you do is you authenticate, and it can automatically pull your monthly bank statements from your bank. So it could be your credit card statement, your corporate card, it automatically pulls all the transactions from your bank. It is read-only, so it's not writing anything or doing any transactions in your banking account. All it is doing is pulling your credit card statement right into the system. And I use this myself, and I have a ton of transactions on a monthly basis, and I use it on a daily basis now, just pretty much pull all the transactions directly, because otherwise, if you have to feed or manually enter the data for each of these transactions, it's a real pain. And what you can do is, once you have that transaction information, you can automatically convert the transaction into an expense. A single click, convert into expense, so you have the expense date, the expense amount, the expense description, all of that captured and added to the system. Again, goes back to the same point, minimizing the data entry into the system, quick in, quick out. And once you automatically import that statement and convert a transaction that you have in your credit card statement into an expense, if you have a receipt that you already uploaded in the system, you can associate a receipt to that particular expense. And that can be done directly with a simple click. If you have the receipt already in the system, you can just browse and say, hey, this is the receipt that is associated with this particular transaction. But if you don't, you can always drag one from your desktop or just from your phone and directly add it to the system. So these are three different ways or kinds of expenses where you can directly or simplify the process of creating expense reports. Now, these are some simple examples, but then there is much more to Zoho Expense. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I'll just quickly touch on two or three things. One, there are going to be cases where you may want to merge expenses, and this is available today. So you have two separate receipts, but as part of the same expense. You can merge that using the merge expenses option. We are also working on an option we are working on the splitting expenses that we are working on, where you may have an expense, but part of the expense may be something for your personal trip, and part of it could be your official trip. So in that case, how do you split the trip? Split the expense? The split is something that we are working on, and it will be available soon. Billable expenses. There are going to be expenses where, that are billable. So in that case, the expenses can be invoiced through Zoho Books and or through your exported to your invoicing software. That is supported today. Then multi-currency support. Obviously, when you travel, especially internationally, you may have expenses in multiple currencies. We support that as well. Mileage tracking. This is another important item. Apart from the standard expenses, you get reimbursed on the mileage that you officially travel. So we support mileage in some interesting ways. I'll get into the details in a bit, but this you can quickly track mileage or input the mileage details either on the web or on the mobile. The application is available on iPhone, or actually it's available in all three platforms, iOS, Android, and even Windows Phone. So it's available on all three platforms. And one of the interesting things about the app is once the app is set up, you really don't have to go to the web. You can pretty much record all your expenses, create your expense reports, submit your expense report, all from the mobile devices. So the mobile applications are extremely powerful. Then we also support Apple Watch. And this is an interesting use case that you're quickly traveling on work. What you do is you're sitting in the car, just launch the expense app on your watch and say start tracking. So it knows your GPS, it gets your GPS information from your phone and gets your current location. Then you drive down to maybe your customer location or your target location, stop there and just say stop tracking. And based on the GPS information, all of that, it calculates the distance between your source and the destination and adds that automatically as a mileage entry, a new mileage expense, without having you to enter anything, including the source and the destination as well. Again, an interesting use of the watch, but in the context of an expense management. You don't have to pull your phone out of your pocket to enter mileage in this case. And we're trying to automate a lot of things in this case. There are a lot of interesting things. Again, it goes back to the same point I made earlier. Minimal data entry. That is where you can quickly or easily or make it easy for the user to get in the system and do their expense reports quickly. Now, we have looked at it from a user's point of view. Here comes the boring part, the organization point of view. Organizations have lots of policies, right? So what kind of support do we have for organizations? So one, the time limits. Organization will say, hey, all the employees should submit their expenses within 30 days of the expense. Or they will say, all the expenses will need receipts, or at least they will need receipts if the amount is more than, say, $20. Or they can say, I do not want to allow any receipts or any expenses more than, say, $1,000 or $2,000. So they can enforce limits per expense, or they can enforce limit per category. You say, entertainment, more than $1,000? No. But travel, more than $5,000? No. So per category, they can limit these expenses. And then they can say, for any expense that is more than $20, I want to mandate descriptions. And things like that. So apart from these limitations or the policies that an organization can enforce, it also supports multiple workflows. Let's say your manager is on vacation and you'd like someone else to approve your expense. Well, all of those are supported within the system. Now, employee, or it enables collaboration between the submitter and the approver. So, the $200 beachside massage that you've expensed, well, Your manager may question it, and you'll have to respond there, and you'll receive a notification when your manager questions it. And the entire transcript is also recorded in the context of that particular expense. Notifications. As I said, notification emails or push notifications are sent on approval overdue. I keep getting that every week, by the way. And expense reminder, expiration reminders, and things like that. Notifications for unreported expenses, and all the boring stuff that that you'd expect from an expense management app. But then what's also interesting is now that, assuming that all employees submit their expenses using the tool, at an organization level, they get a good idea on where they are spending the money. How much is my travel expense within the company? Or what percentage of expense of my total budget is actually going towards, let's say, expenses for entertainment? Or how about list of users who are spending the most? So it could be expense report, various expense reports by various types. Show me all the users who are violating my policies. Well, so these kinds of reports are available for the organization. So again, organization want more control, and you get that using the product. So we talked about the requirements from an employee, how we make it easy for the employee, and we talked about the control that an organization gets. As we launched with certain integrations. But as I said, integration cannot be a check mark. As I said this morning, you start with a simple integration, but you keep adding on to it. The requirements grow, and all these integrations, once you get started, there are a ton of integrations that you could be doing. So for now, we'll talk about Zoho CRM integration first. One, you can say, these are all my sales users, salespeople from my CRM system. I want to give access to all these salespeople, and you can directly do that within Expense. So within Zoho Expense, you can import all your users from Zoho CRM and provide them access to the expense management app. Now, next one is Zoho Books integration. This integration exists today, where an expense report or an expense is approved, and it automatically shows up in Zoho Books. The entire Zoho Expense application is actually built on the Zoho Books platform. So which means there is a seamless information flow between these systems. Like the chart of accounts in Books appear as categories in Zoho Expense. And the reimbursement can be directly made from Zoho Books. So there are a ton of these integrations between the systems, and foreign currencies, for example, created in one system, that will be available in the other. So because it is built on the Zoho Books platform, you see a lot of or seamless information flow between the systems. And you also have interesting things where Zoho reports can easily be mapped into the projects. Expense reports can be easily mapped into the projects that you are associated with. Remember, Zoho Books has a concept of projects where you could be working on a task and you can bill a customer based on a project. And by the way, they also have some interesting apps like a watch app where you can say, hey, I'm starting a task, I'm working on this task, and I want to bill my customer based on the number of time, the amount of time I work. Open up your watch app, start the timer, and associate, and then after you're done, stop the timer and associate that directly to a particular project or a task. And again, it's all included in the project. So there are a ton of the integrations here between these systems. Let me quickly show you the expense system. Here's the interface. Very neat, simple. On the left side, you have the navigation. On the right side is the dashboard on the home tab. You could be working at multiple organizations. You could be a consultant working at multiple companies. You can choose the companies here. In this case, I have a single organization, but I can change organizations and I can manage these expenses for multiple organizations. And once you're here, you have basic options to create a new expense, upload receipts, create a new expense report and others. And you have a summary of the unsubmitted expenses, the submitted ones, and the ones that are waiting reimbursements. And then you have others like the recent reports. The receipts tab is where all the receipts are listed. In this case, by default, it lists all the unreported receipts. You can click on it and you see the details of that particular receipt. And let's look at all the receipts. In this case, let's see all the receipts that I have over here. Let's pick one. You'll notice that the date all of these receipts are automatically pulled from the receipt. Again, you don't have to do any manual entry. If for some reason it didn't extract the right information, you can of course correct it. And what do you do after you're done? Well, you can close it and open up another expense, all of that. But again, as I said earlier, what we are trying to do is quick in and quick out. So you can just save and go to the next one, go to the next one, and move on with this navigation. So you don't have to, spend a lot of time in manually organizing these. So these are all not only extracted, but they are also automatically categorized. If the automatic categorization doesn't work, you can of course manually select the category as well. Now this is the receipt section, but from a receipt, you create an expense. So you can always add an expense from using the new expense option. When you add a new expense, you provide the category information and the payment and other details, and you can drag a receipt from your desktop and associate to this expense. And you'll notice that there is another category of expense here, that is mileage. You specify the distant travel, or you can say, I want to enter the odometer reading before and after the trip. It calculates it and adds it here. You can associate an expense or mileage to a customer as well. Just select the customer, or you can even associate which expense report you want to add it to. All of these are available right there. Now, if you click on any of these expenses, okay, before that, let's see the view here. It's a simple view, straightforward. And on the right side, apart from the amount, you'll see some notifications here. Say this expense violates certain policies, right? A bunch of them violate policies here. And you click on any of these, you say, requires a receipt as the amount is greater than 200. And another policy it violates is the expense requires a description. You can add the description, edit it, add a description, and you should be done. And the entire history of that particular expense is also shown here. So an expense is created and updated. So the entire log of every single expense is also updated here. Once you have your expenses, you can select multiple expenses and you can create a report. Or you can directly go to the report section and you create a new report. Provide the basic details, and it automatically says, hey, you already have a few unreported expenses. Do you want to add those unreported expenses to this report? So you can select the report, select the expenses that you want to add, and add it to the report, and you should be done. Or you can, of course, create a new expense and add it to the report as well. Now, if you look at any of these, it'll show you the status. This one is owed you by 41 days. And again, you see that some of the expenses within the report violated some policies as well. Click on any of these, you see the policies that it has violated. And you can also see the details of the policy violations here as well. And if someone has a question regarding an expense, just click on the plus button, and you can have a conversation here in the context of the expense. And then you have others like the approval. You can approve an expense and all of that. Then you have the analytics. Analytics where you say, show me the expenses by category. In this case, I just have a couple of categories, or show me all the policy violations that I have between this date and this date. So there are various types of reports that you have. Then just quickly touching on the settings. This is where you set up your system, provide your company name, upload your logo, what your base currency is, language that you want, and all the standard things. The categories, all of these categories are automatically pulled from books. The mileage, the units, your mileage rates, all of these can be defined. And of course, there are other policies that a company can specify, the expense expiry period, expense amount limit, and all of these. And other details about the reports, how the report should show up, and others. Now, in this case, the customers added are showed, merchants are showed, and by default, the application is integrated with Zoho Books and Zoho CRM. And there are many other integrations that are coming, but this is at a high level, I want to provide a quick overview of the product. Thank you.